All right, guys, so here we are, Monday night. We're live, 5:48. Thank you so much for subscribing, for tuning in tonight, and being part of the experience. Aired out in Barrie at the studios of Central Vermont Television, CV-TV, at cvtv723.org. Thanks to Tony Campos and Billy and Chris Wright from Wright Electric, our new additional presenting sponsor of Aired Out, along with Gauthier's Quality Grounds and Maintenance of Orange. Jason has been a very busy guy out plowing and getting new customers for the winter. Project Independence, active adult day health services right here in the heart of Barrie on North Main Street, and operated in partnership with Gifford Retirement Communities. PIBarrie.org to learn more about what you might be missing. They're going to be on the show real soon, and I can't wait to tell you more about all the great things that Project Independence is up to. Fontaine Forestry and Millworks of East Montpelier, we love them over there. Route 14, just below the Bragg Farm. Mark Fontaine and family getting it done. Tongue and groove, shiplap, kiln dried, no matter what it is, they'll do it, and it's all locally harvested wood, as you'll see here in right here on the show every time. This beautiful table, handmade by Mark Fontaine. Fly on the Wall Productions, and again, of course, CVTV, your local community cable channel 192 and 194. It is with great pleasure tonight. I am so excited to have you two in here. We have the Centennial President at the American Legion Auxiliary Department of Vermont, Karina Colson, my guest tonight. And right next to her is the founder and the executive director of Honor Flight New England, Joe Byron. Hello.
Hello there.
Thank you guys for coming here. Joe, we're going to start out with you, my man. I want to say right off, you just drove here from where now?
Manchester, New Hampshire.
And you're going to stay overnight.
I am going to stay overnight.
Right here in the Granite City.
As it snows.
Because the weather's going to be crappy. It's going to be greasy. Roger Hill's been saying all day about the junk that's coming in. Some sleet, some freezing rain, some snow, all in the mix. Smart to do that. But, wow, thank you for making the trip to Barrie.
I appreciate you having me here tonight. Thank you so much.
And with like hardly any notice. So Karina, you called them up last night and you're like...
I actually sent him an email, I think before I contacted you, because I just knew that, you would love to have him here as well.
Yeah.
So I sent the email to him first and said, hey, Joe, I know it's short notice, but what do you think? Can you come to Barrie to do a podcast with me? And then I talked to you and you said, oh, we'd love to have him. And,
was he like, what the hell's a podcast?
No, he didn't even ask the questions. He said,
Boom.
Sure, I'd love to come. So, like Joe does for me.
Yeah. So, and we were just saying before the show started, this guy has been always on the front line ready to promote the Honor Flight.
That's correct. He, throughout my year, I have two very special men that have really done a lot for me. One being entertainer Mark Shelton, who just finished our centennial celebration at the Barrie American Legion. So thank them for their volunteering their space for us.
Last Sunday, I think
that was last
right?
Sunday, yes. And so we had that, and then Mr. Joe Byron, who is from Honor Flight New England, which is my president's project. So, and anytime I need anything from either of them, they're right there to help me with it.
Wow,
and that's great. That's great for our veterans.
A shout out to the American Legion, 100 years. I just had Steve England in here a couple of weeks ago.
Who's also a very stand-up guy.
Stand up, without a doubt. I mean, just love him to pieces. 100 years.
Yeah, Steve was very instrumental for me for this year because also part of my president's project, we have for our 5 districts, we did the military branches of service. And so one of the things we wanted to do to celebrate was we wanted to give out a lot of gifts for different things that our members did. And I was looking for a military trunk, and I was looking all over Facebook and found one for like $40 and just happened to put it out there on Facebook, and Steve's wife contacted me and she said, if you want one, we have 3 at the Barry Post.
Oh my gosh.
So they actually gave me one. They gave it to me, and the thing is incredible. So we've used it a lot of times this year. So
Isn't that something?
yeah, that's Steve England. That's the Legion family, though.
Yeah, it is.
Always
Yeah, it
there,
is.
always there to help out.
Big time, big time.
So
I think that Lisa is still trying to teach Steve a little bit about what Facebook is. It's taken her some time. I mean, the guy just doesn't know what social media is.
he's better face to face socially. Yes, he's definitely better face to face. Yes, but absolutely love him, adore him, him and Lisa.
We all do. We all do. The entire community knows him very, very well. Joe, I got to ask you, man, and let's just get right to it. First of all, let's say this. If you are a veteran or if you know someone who is a veteran, especially an old veteran, this is one show that you really want them to catch. So when we're done tonight here live, you'll have a link that you can share with anyone in the world. And old veterans, when we say old, we're talking like, Korean War, Vietnam War,
World War II.
World War II, for sure. Up at my dad's nursing home, there's some World War II vets up there, and see them every day. And I'm just so awestruck by them. I mean, it's just, and some Korean War vets too. I mean, it's
just a lesson in humility.
Yeah, it is.
Just a lesson in humility.
It sure is. So, for a dumb guy like me who doesn't know what an honor flight is, really truly don't know what an honor flight is, and I just told you, kind of what I thought it was, way off dial here. What is an honor flight, and what is Honor Flight New England? What do you do?
Well, we take our most senior heroes to Washington, D.C. to visit and reflect at their memorials at no cost to them. And it's an incredibly, incredibly humbling day to be with them all day because a lot of times they haven't told their story. And it almost gives them permission to tell their story with the only ones that truly understand, and it's their comrades.
That's right.
That's right. So we just we get an executive escort all day long. We're escorted by the U.S. Park Police, the same police department that escorts the president and vice president, and they part the traffic for us, and we go through red lights, and just an executive escort. We call it an executive escort, and so we can truly make all of the memorials.
I got goosebumps.
And
wow,
just to be with them.
Just hearing you say that, just tearing me up. It's amazing.
We're not going to have both of you crying on this.
Hey, it's possible. You never know what could happen.
I heard on a train going down to D.C. when you find your why, it'll make you cry, and here we are.
Yeah.
It does.
Oh, man. So this is, when we get there, how many memorials and what are they that we're visiting?
We typically go World War II, Korean, Air Force, Navy, the changing of the guard. We try to get to every one of them, and before we come home, Arlington, yeah, we go to the changing of the guard. They know we're coming, so we bus right up, so they don't have that long walk, and they let us to remove one of the change, so we call them the money seats, so we can get in closer than the typical public. And then very unknown fact about the sentries at the post at the Arlington Cemetery is when they drag their heel, it's a salute to our veterans. So they wear the taps on their shoes, and when they drag their heel as they go out in front of our vets, they drag their heel, and that means it's a salute to the veterans. They're acknowledging they're there. Because
their hands are occupied. Mm-hmm. Isn't that something? I never knew that. So we're all in Washington, D.C. for this trip,
right?
And we're put up in a hotel. I'm guessing
one day. Leave early and back late.
Really? Mm-hmm. So we get down there. We leave Burlington at the crack of dawn?
No, we leave either Manchester or Boston.
Okay.
So the only thing our veterans need to do is get to the airport, and we'll take care of 100% of everything else.
Food, everything.
Everything. And then we sit down at the BWI Hilton and have dinner before we come home. and a sit-down dinner with, like a wedding type of dinner with 10 people at a table, so they get their chance to talk with each other.
Sure.
And then we go to the airport and come home.
Oh, my goodness. So how often is this done?
We do 4 to 6 trips a year.
A year?
Yeah.
So you've
just
got
nice weather.
So you have it marked on the calendar of.
We start usually in March or April, and then go March, April, May, June, and then September, October, or November.
And what's the airline? Does it change, or is it always the same?
The cheapest one we can find.
Yeah.
And typically it's Southwest Airlines.
Yeah, which is a great airline.
It is a great airline.
And they must honor those that are walking onto their jets too.
They
Isn't
really
that
do.
something?
They announce we're on there, and all the vets don't expect anything that happens that day, so it's all a surprise for them.
So how does that work? So I mean, I know there's a waiting list, but you jump in here anytime you want, Karina. You just
no,
just
that's okay.
Take the elbow.
I could listen to Joe all day long.
Jam it right
here.
Go for the ribs.
No, I love his program so much. I'll listen to him all day long.
How is it a surprise?
Because all they know is they're coming. We date stamp the applications when they come in, and the only thing we typically share with them is that we're going on the trip. And that's it. They don't know that there's going to be flag lines and motorcycles and all that kind of stuff. And
wow.
Yeah, on the Father's Day trip at Manchester Airport, there was 178 motorcycles, along with the police department and fire department and stuff like that.
So was that the one that started this whole
in Father's Day?
Okay,
Father's Day.
So
yeah.
So the way this happened, the way I chose this as my project is I have a very, very special veteran that is in my life. His name is Ken Brown. He's from Greensboro, and he was turning 100 years old last year. And so we were planning a big birthday party at our post for him, and there was one thing that his son had said, hey, I'd really like to send him on the honor flight. And before he asked me that, I had no idea what it was. And so he came to me and I said, well, let me check it out. So I called Joe up, and I didn't know Joe from Adam.
So you're just literally Googling honor flight New England.
And I called him up and I said, Joe, I said, and he sounds a lot different on the phone. He almost sounds, kind of mean, but anyway.
Like mafia.
Direct?
Yeah.
Just kind of direct?
Very direct. And I said to him, Joe, I have this veteran. He's turning 100 years old this year, and I'd like to send him on the honor flight. And he said, I'm sorry. He said, our flights fill up in January. He's like, I don't know if I can do that for you. And I said, Joe, I have to have him on this flight. I said, the man is turning 100.
Right.
I said, I don't know if he's got another year left.
Yeah.
And I said, I want him to go down there, and I want him to see those monuments. And he said, well, he said, I'll talk to, I can't remember the girl's name that does it.
Sheila.
And he said, I'll talk to Sheila and we'll see. But he said, but I can't guarantee you anything. And I said, well, Joe, I said, I don't know for certain. I said, I strongly believe that next year I'm going to be the American Legion Auxiliary President for the state of Vermont.
Uh-oh. And
I said, and if you do this for me, I said, I will make your organization my president's project.
Ooh.
I said, if you get him on that flight, I said, I will guarantee you I will make your organization.
She went for the jugular, man.
Oh, she did.
Just shut it down.
I did because I cared so much about this gentleman. And not only did Joe get Mr. Ken Brown on there, but he also got Ken's friend Albert Lacasse.
Wow. So
2 of our veterans went on the honor flight on the Father's Day trip with their sons.
Ooh.
And I have to say, it was an experience like no other for them. So
people like you guys, both of you, it is such an honor for me to have you on my show.
Oh, thank
the
you.
things that you do, I love that. I love that story.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. So they get down there, they're treated with royalty. There's lots of pomp and circumstance, and
there is.
That's so cool.
They say it's one of the best days of their life behind getting married and having children.
Isn't that something?
Something for us to be there.
And these Vietnam vets, and I've chatted with a few of them up at the nursing home. A lot of what they have said to me when I say, if we get chatting a little bit, and you have to approach it with kid gloves, but when you ask the general, how was it? How did it change your life? What was it like? A lot of them will go right to the reception or the lack thereof that they received when they came home.
That's right.
We're talking about Vietnam. So hopefully this will allow a little bit of a makeup and reconciliation with regard to that, to show those vets that, man, they all walk on water, all of them.
Yeah. We said, hey, I'm not afraid to say we love them.
Yeah.
Me either.
We do. So Honor Flight New England it's a nonprofit. It's a 501c3 or whatever it may be, but it's a nonprofit. So you have to rely on, this is not a cheap endeavor to fly. How many vets? 4 times a year?
If we take a whole plane, if the whole Southwest plane, 143 seats, cost us, last year, we can't get charter flights any longer because of the planes that are grounded. Last year, it cost us $80,000 just for the plane.
For 4 trips?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't. We can't get the charters anymore. But we'll do either we'll do a 1-bus trip, which is 25 vets, or a 2-bus trip, which is 40 vets, or a whole plane is 65 vets. So,
okay.
4 to 6 times a year.
So that 80,000. Hang on a second. That's per trip?
Per trip.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a plane. It costs us $6,000 for dinner. So you throw all the other expenses in there. It's pretty expensive, but
wow,
we've met some incredible people that make it happen.
That's a huge amount of money.
That's an incredible amount, and that's why. Wow. That's why, JD, I wanted to come on the program so badly, because that's the whole point of my project this year. And I've been told that it's a really good project, and people have started donating. I also have a pin raffle for my president's pin. I could have given them away, but I decided that I was going to actually accept a donation of $10 and put them into a raffle to receive one of my pins. And all of the money from my pin raffle will go to Honor Flight New England. My program is Honor Flight Vermont. Joe has allowed me to say that. And my goal is to get the remaining World War II and Korean War veterans on one of these honor flights. And we're running out of time. Every day, we lose at least, or every year, we probably lose, I would say, maybe even over 20 veterans a year for World War II. I know a lot of
just World War II.
I know, and a lot of and of course we're losing Korean, we're losing Vietnam veterans, we're losing we've lost several Vietnam veterans recently from our post, so we're in a race against time. I mean that's what their emblem is, and so what I wanted to do is I wanted to raise enough money to send all of our Vermont veterans on one of the honor flights.
They all should be there.
They definitely should be there. They are deserving. So
understatement.
So that's my plight. And so, being on here, I'd like to reach out to everyone, not only to raise money for this, but also to help find these veterans. I can find the ones through the American Legion. Headquarters will give me a list of all the American Legion veterans, but that's only a fraction of the veterans out there. There's the VFWs. There's veterans that don't belong to either of the organizations. And as far as, I'm concerned, they're as deserving as anyone else. I can only get to the American Legion ones. But so that's the other part of this. People need to get in touch. They need to figure out, if they have a veteran that's eligible. And as Joe will tell you, they are senior veterans. I've had them tell me, well, I can't really do that. I can't walk well, or, I have oxygen, or, and that's okay, because Joe will explain to you just what veterans are not able to go. But most veterans are able to go. They're all in wheelchairs. Am I right, Joe?
We bring a wheelchair for everyone. We don't mandate that they sit in the wheelchair, but we do bring one for everyone. We bring them on oxygen, so we'll switch off the tanks in Baltimore and get them oxygen. And we bring medical crews with us, typically first responders and doctors that come with us. And so we're prepared to take care of whatever is going to be dealt to us on that day. And we've had 58 flights now, so we're
58 flights?
2,104 veterans.
Hang on a second. Pardon me. I'm just writing that. I need to write this down or I'll never remember. 58 have flown so far.
Yeah.
That's...
Our oldest vet was 103.
That is absolutely remarkable. And how many veterans total?
2,104. And our youngest vet went in the service at 14 and a half years old.
How many female veterans, Joe?
We've had 82 female veterans, 40 POWs.
42
Ken
POWs.
was one of those. Ken was one of those POWs,
Yeah.
I might add.
Yes.
Another reason that I felt, he needed to be on the honor flight.
Oh, sure. World War II?
World War II, POW.
Wow.
Yeah. He's
And
100.
that's how all this started.
Yeah, he'll be 102 this June 5th.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
Yet, tell me how this whole thing
It
started.
all started because I retired law enforcement and I investigated crimes against our senior population. And,
Keep going here. You've got my interest.
In order to build a rapport with our seniors, I walked in the mall because they don't report their crimes. And I shook the hand of a POW who told me his story and still got emotional. And his name is Jerry Hebert. And his story was that he and Spags were involved in a machine gun battle. And Spags' machine gun jammed. And they asked my buddy Jerry to go and jam Spags' machine gun while Jerry took over Spags' machine gun. And
This is World War II.
World War II. And when Jerry returned to his machine gun, Spags had been killed. And so he had survivor's guilt for 65 years. He cried every time he told that story.
So where do we go from there? What was...
In 2009, I got off a plane in Baltimore, and I saw an honor flight, and I called the National, and I said, do you have anybody in New England? And they said, well, what state do you want? I said, well, if you don't have anybody in New England, I'll take New England.
Crazy.
They said, well, you're responsible for raising all your own money. And I said, I think we can do that. And because of the generosity of so many others, we've been able to do what we've done.
Did anyone say you're crazy, Joe? You're never going to be able to do it?
When you say World War II or Korean vets,
you're hitting a nerve.
They've touched every one of us in a huge way. And so are you going after big corporate sponsorships? We'll try to get anybody that will sponsor us. That's how we approach it. And we've had some big sponsorships in the past. We've had Ocean State Job Lot sponsored a flight, and then the next year they sponsored 3 planes from 3 states.
Isn't that something else?
And so it's just all the connections you make. That came through
right.
A Boston Globe reporter who had taken his father that did a story on the founder of Job Lot. And they said, have you heard of Honor Flight? And they said no. And that's how that started.
So when was all this? You said the beginning of the beginning was 2001?
2009.
That's not that long ago.
No, 2009. We just, but it just isn't.
And prior to that, it wasn't in New England.
Which is very interesting because I just joined the American Legion in 2010 when my father, who was a Vietnam veteran, passed away unexpectedly in his sleep. And
sorry.
Well, no, I think I've done some healing since then. But part of the way I've healed is through the American Legion and through these veterans. And so it's interesting that Honor Flight started right around the same time.
Yeah.
So.
How many? So, what's the rule of thumb for? Are you allowed to bring a family member? Are you
one family member?
One
family member as a guardian.
Wow.
It costs a family member $600 to come with us.
Yeah.
And but one family member, and we've heard all kinds of stories. They're drawn out of a hat, and that's how they were lucky when they come. But we'll encourage them to meet us in Washington and meet them at the World War II Memorial.
If they want to drive down or whatever,
fly down. But we can't get them on the buses because we don't have room. But just to surprise the vets when they get down there and see the family members.
You've seen that? You've seen that?
We've had a family of 13 go down.
Really?
And meet them at the World War II Memorial.
I can imagine.
And it is a surprise to them. So it's been an incredible experience.
This guy's he's gonna make me cry like something good here. I just can't imagine what that's.
If you'd like to see him cry, I have a story.
No.
Yeah, please do.
I'd prefer you don't. But
it's all right. It's all right.
So
it's all right. We've not the first time we've shed a tear on the program. It's just remarkable.
So just to give you a little bit of background as to the character of this gentleman, Mark Shelton as well. We were talking about the show that we did at the Double E that Mark was performing down there.
Mark's watching right now, by the way. So thank you, Mark. We love you.
Thank you, Mark.
We do love you, and hug Lisa for us too.
Oh man, wait till that show comes. They're coming on.
Are they coming on?
Oh, of course they're coming
You have
on.
to have them on.
Oh yeah.
So we were there with Mark, and Mark had us set up a little table. He had the Susan G. Komen Foundation there as well, and he had his own table with his CDs and his scarves. And well, actually, he had borrowed his scarves to the Susan G. Komen Foundation so they could sell them.
Yeah.
So we were there, and we were talking to people as they came in, talking to them about Honor Flight, and through the door walks this young woman, I think, and she had a disability, but she was dressed in an Elvis jumpsuit, similar to what Mark had on. And her and her mother were coming through the line, and she really wanted a CD. And her mother said, no, not this time, honey. And you'd have thought that she had, just crushed her. And so Joe and I were there, and Joe was watching this, and they went through the line, and they went into the show. And then when the show started, Joe and I went into the show. And so we're sitting there, we're watching the show, and he's blown away by Mark. And then he says, well, I'll be right back. And, of course, I'm not going to say, where you going? I figure he's going to the restroom. So I stayed, watched the show, and then Joe came back and didn't think a thing of it. I thought he had to go to the restroom. We got up to after the show and went out and went back to man the table, and people were putting donations in and stuff. And out through the doors comes Elvis's biggest fan, her in her jumpsuit. And Mark is outside greeting people, and he stops her, and he says, I understand you wanted one of my CDs. And she was like, oh, yes. And he handed her the CD, and she just about fell apart, thanking him and everything else. And he said to her, don't thank me, thank that gentleman right over there. And he pointed to Joe. And that's when I realized what Joe had done. And what was interesting is that we went outside afterwards. The show ended at like 10:30, 11. And this is the first time I'd ever really talked to this gentleman. And we were out in the parking lot till 1:30 in the morning talking about, just everything. And that came up, and I said to him, I can't believe you did that. And he said, what I can't believe is that Mark Shelton would not take credit for it. He said, I told him not to tell her that it was me.
Mm-hmm.
And he just wouldn't do it. And so, and as he's telling me this, of course, he's crying like he is now. And, I just said, I couldn't have partnered with two more wonderful human beings for my centennial year.
Couple of top brass dudes right there.
Exactly, so that's that's the story that I had to share. Whether Joe, you need some Kleenex, but these men are just wonderful, and I feel so blessed to have them as part of my year.
Oh, you're connected and dialed in with the finest. There's no question about it.
I agree with that.
Wow.
So now it's time to raise money for Honor Flight.
Yeah, and I see that that was going on a little bit over this past weekend down in Massachusetts. They had a big pub crawl, right?
They did have a big pub crawl.
And Joe was there.
And I was there. And that all came about through a woman named Nicole Carlon and her husband's a state trooper down there, and she called me 9 years ago and says, I'm going to have a pub crawl for you. I says, I have no idea what a pub crawl is. So she goes, all you have to do is show up. And she sold 1,200 shirts, and about 700 people came. And
really,
she raised some money for
year
us.
one.
This year she raised.
Oh, this past year?
Yeah, 1,200 shirts and 700 people came, and it's the biggest day at all the bars in Maynard, Mass. But it's.
Well, I saw some of the. First of all, please take a minute and get on Honor Flight New England on Facebook. Mm-hmm. If you want to see some of the photographs, are pretty cool. Looks like everybody's having a great time.
Great time.
Yeah.
And I always say the best part of that story is going at 1 o'clock because it goes late into the evening, and we wrap it up at 9 or 10 o'clock, and to watch the transition.
Sure. I'm sure. So that's really cool. So that happened this past weekend.
This weekend in
Maynard, Mass.
Maynard, Mass, small town. Wonderful, 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 incredible people down there. Nicole Colon started it all.
Wow. Yeah, Thank you, Nicole. If you're watching the show, what can we do in Vermont? We've got, obviously Mark has stepped up to the plate a couple of times here. Mm-hmm. What else can we do? Are we looking for any businesses that are listening right now or watching right now that might be able to say, hey, we'd like to sponsor in part one of the flights coming up?
That would be fantastic. Okay. I that is more than what, we have a lot of Vermont businesses, and Vermont is a very loving state. They care for their citizens, and if we had a Vermont business that wanted to help send some of our World War II Korean War veterans on one of these flights, and they were willing to donate, that would be incredible for me. Joe and I were talking earlier, and I said to him, how much money do I need to raise, to ensure that we could send, a flight full of Vermont veterans on the plane? And he gave me a number about 36,000. He said 36,000, which is unheard of for an auxiliary president that I know of. I haven't heard of anyone, at least in the years that I've been involved, that has raised that kind of money. So that's, I want to say that maybe that's a crazy goal. And maybe, Vermont doesn't have that kind of funds to put in towards this project. But that's what I'm going to shoot for, because I think it's good to have a goal. I've been goal-oriented all my life. And even if it's not an attainable goal, that's what I want to do. I want to raise $36,000 so we could send at least one flight of Vermont veterans on the honor flight.
Vermonters will always surprise you. They'll always surprise you. I mean, look at Stuff a Truck this past weekend. We have filled, when I say we, Vermonters filled a tractor trailer for 18 years in a row with non-perishable food for the Salvation Army. There's never any question. There's never any doubt that they step to the plate every time and look after each other. Vermonters helping Vermonters. It does sound like a lot of money, but nothing would surprise. I mean, it just wouldn't surprise me.
And I don't think it would. I don't think I would be surprised either, because we're Vermont strong. Let's face it.
Yeah.
Vermont might be a little state, but when one of us is in need, we come through.
Yeah.
We come through, and and this is for our senior most veterans.
Sure, of course. I say this: if there are some younger veterans in Vermont, and gosh, there's a lot of them. I mean, what was it? 2008? Is that when we had a big deployment? I think it was 2008. there are so many younger veterans that I know. I'm saying, if you're one of them, find, if you don't know already, an older veteran and cover their trip. Go with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, get the business that you work for to maybe write a check for you and for the older veteran, and sponsor, if you will, this other veteran, so that the two of you can go. Mm-hmm. And man, you're so right. I mean, it's not just Vermont. I mean, it's everywhere. We have veterans who, and when they're gone, and all we can do is rely, sadly, on Hollywood, among other resources, to tell their story.
And that's the reason we do this, is so they can get that story out, because so many of them are tucked down deep inside. They've never told their story, and if you don't mind, I'll read a story of one of the veterans. And if you can imagine this, it's a very horrific story. I fought in the 3rd Infantry Division in Korea. 3 days after I got married, I was shipped to Korea. As we landed on the beach, we immediately went into battle, and my best man in my wedding was killed. Due to the fact that we were issued World War II clothing and boots, my feet became frostbitten. They were so bad that I was transferred to the hospital in Japan, and after I recovered, I was sent back to Korea. Eventually, I was captured and ended up as a POW for 8 months. During one incident, I was let out of my cell after 14 days with no food. There was a chow line. The Japanese were spitting into rice bowls and serving them. I was starving. I reached for the bowl, and an Allied lieutenant tried to stop me, but my hand touched the bowl. I was then beaten with rifle butts, and my teeth were knocked out. They urinated into rags and put them on my wounds. Upon release, I was flown back to Japan to recover. Again, my face was crushed and my teeth were gone. Following that experience, I was sent to Texas. I eventually worked as an MP recovering stolen vehicles. I was given an honorable discharge. Not long after my discharge, I became an emotional mess. It began when my mind snapped. My brother-in-law, the deputy fire chief, was called because I was barricaded in the bathroom with a butcher knife. The police were called, and I was put in a straitjacket. I spent the next 2 years in the hospital after multiple sessions of shock treatments, where they were able to calm the demons in my head. During my stay, it was determined I had developed epilepsy that was a result of my beatings to my head as a POW. It took a long time, but eventually I was deemed 100% disabled, which helped me because I could not keep a job. I was having seizures and no one wanted to hire me. I've developed permanent nerve damage to my right side and have neuropathy in both my legs. And then he went on to be the head of a veterans organization to help other veterans. Can you imagine?
I don't.
These stories are tough, way down deep. And are the next generation and every generation after this needs to know them, because the world's going to be a darker place when they're gone.
Sure it is.
And every single veteran we've ever come across said they'd all do it again.
I know.
Without hesitation.
You know, we just celebrated Veterans Day, and remarkable story, Joe. Unbelievable. We had a World War II documentary that we had playing up at my dad's nursing home. He's a Korean War vet, and it just showed, unspeakable things. And this 91-year-old World War II veteran who was sitting next to me leaned over and said into my ear, and that's how we fought a war without any technology. You know, the communications, just everything was done, you know, bayonets. I mean, just to see those veterans fight for their country, fight for their lives is, back then was, you know, it's different now. It's different now, but they're coming home hurt. They're coming home real hurt. They're coming home hurt. And they sure are. And I think one of the, and I'm not a veteran, and I'm not trying to speak for veterans, but I mean, I've had conversations with Ron Tallman about this, is that a lot of these younger veterans that are coming home, for whatever reason it may be, God only knows what the reasons are, they're a little bit more reclusive, it seems like. They're hiding out. They're not necessarily beating the door down to get into the VFW, to walk in there by themselves, right, to walk into an environment, even though they know it's full of veterans, and saying, hey, my name's Joe. Hopefully, there is going to be some way to chisel that down a little bit and try to make the many organizations that exist out there more but just more approachable.
JD, can I speak about that?
Please.
So one of the other things that we have planned for this year, because you are right, the younger veterans coming home, they don't want to go to the American Legion. They don't want to go to the VFW because everything they know about it, it's older. The older veterans, you know, it's kind of like a gentleman's bar. That's what they see it as.
Yes.
And these veterans, a lot of them coming home, they may have families. Yeah. And so I think that kind of plays a big part in it.
Sure it does.
One of the things that...
They're instantly busy.
Correct. One of the things that I'm also... And some of them come back, you know, with injuries. PTSD, they're missing a limb. You know, there's the whole traumatic brain injuries, things like that. Our national president, Nicole Clapp, her President's Project this year, and I'm very thankful that, you know, she's doing this. And when they sent the information, I was like, wow, that's an area we haven't touched. Her President's Project is veterans health and rehabilitation and adaptive sports medicine. And so when I got the thing from National about that and was trying to figure out, well, what do we have here that she can come and see, because you always want the national president to come, I went online, I did a Google search, and we have a company here called Vermont Adaptive Veterans Venture Project out of Killington. And so I've also partnered with them. This will be later on in the year, for when she's here for the visit, for them to come, and we're going to try to organize a walk, run, and roll event. And you know, the venue right now is set for Montpelier. I've already secured the State House lawn for this, and awesome. I think we'll do the relay. We'll do it kind of like the corporate cup. We have to, you know, have the path for it, and so we're in negotiations now with the city of Montpelier to see if they're going, you know, to close the roads and stuff. I have the application. So, but that is where our veterans are at now, the ones that are coming back. You know, they don't want to go to the American Legion. They don't want to go to the VFW, but they want activities where they can interact with others.
And they don't necessarily be in the spotlight as an individual.
Correct.
For many, there's a pride issue.
There is.
There can be.
And they want to be able to do activities like when we were We were at a national convention. Nicole had a speaker there, and the gentleman, I can't think of what the name of his company is, but he does kayaking for blind veterans.
Yeah.
And
I've seen it on Facebook.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
it's amazing watching them work with these, and and one of the gentlemen was a quadriplegic,
Mm-hmm.
and they worked with him. They put him in a pool. But it's things that they can do with their comrades that doesn't involve going and sitting in a bar and talking all about it. It's
Right.
it's what they want,
Yeah.
and I think organizations like the American Legion, the VFW, they need to find a way to make this work. So
It's not easy.
no, it's not easy. It's not easy, and so that's something we have to work on as organizations.
Sure.
And I think that if you don't mind me telling a story about one of our younger vets that came with us, he called and he wanted to get his grandfather on the flight. 2 tours in Afghanistan. Came home, PTSD issues, anger issues, and he not a pill taker, and the only ones that truly understand are the ones that are involved. And so he went and tried to talk to a counselor and didn't work. And so he says he ended the conversation when we had our first conversation with, I really need this. And he took his grandfather on the flight. And then 2 years later, he said, you know that first conversation I had with you? And he stood up in front of 250 people, never told us. He says, I was on the verge of suicide. 3 kids, under 6. Didn't know where to turn. And he said, somehow you pulled me out of a black hole, and this has been it. And he says, so now he comes with us as a flight medic with us, and now he has 4 kids. So it's the young veterans we got to get to, too, and we got to wrap our arms around them and tell them we love them, and we got to do something for them.
You bet. You bet. No doubt. I want to give you just a little bit of a heads up here. Have a pen close by because I'm going to, Joe and Karina are going to give you information on how to get in touch with them directly here in just a minute. So be on standby to have a pen and paper in hand for that. But, of course, it's very easy to find on Facebook. Mm-hmm. Honor Flight New England.
Honor Flight New England.
That's it.
.org, Honor Flight New England, or if they want to send us an email or have a question,
right.
It's honorflightnewengland@gmail.com.
Honor Flight New England.
All spelled out.
@gmail.com. What is the waiting list to get? When is the next flight, and what is the waiting list on these flights?
Well, the waiting list for World War II vets is immediate. They're going to get on immediately. Terminally ill vets from any war will get on immediately, or we'll get on our next flight.
Interesting.
And then Korean vets, we have a little bit of a wait, but we feel that we'll get them out next year.
Okay. And Vietnam?
Vietnam, we're not quite sure because we're still filling the seats with our Korean and World War II vets. So.
Wow. So what about the folks, we were just talking about some of the younger wars. Should they give up hope of getting on a honor flight?
Well, all my hair may be gone by that starts happening, but I'm sure. But our plan is definitely to continue this, and if I'm not here, I'm sure I'm going to pass it on to somebody who's going to continue it. But if they're having some issues, that they don't want to discuss with anyone, and if they think that they need some relief, and come on a flight with us.
Sure.
Just come on a flight with us and talk to our most senior vets.
No, what's your story? You must be a veteran.
I'm a Vietnam era vet, nothing special.
Those are some of the most special. You're sitting next to a Vietnam veteran's daughter right here.
Yeah.
I don't consider myself anything special.
Neither did he, but I'll tell you, he was a very special man.
Oh, yeah. These humble guys, man, I'm telling you. On 58 flights, 2,104 veterans.
It's everybody else that makes it happen.
And tell me again, tell me again, how much is this costing per?
A full plane cost us $80,000 just for the plane.
And that's about 175 vets on board?
65 vets and then 65 guardians, and then the rest is our crew, the medical crew, and all of those that attend with us to make sure that we keep them safe.
And then you get down there, and the buses are...
The bus is about $3,000 or $4,000. The dinner's $6,000, and the police are a couple $1,000, and our snacks and all that kind of stuff. But there's been some incredible people that have made this happen.
Wow. Businesses that are watching right now, listening right now, it doesn't matter whether you're in Vermont or not. If you are able to make any kind of contribution to sponsor Vermont veterans getting on board the next honor flight, which I think you said is in March?
March or April.
I'll tell you, they've got a spot for you right now, and I will personally take as best care of you as I possibly can. You're welcome to come on this podcast and talk about your contribution, if you're able to make one, to sponsor a group of Vermonters, a group of Vermont veterans, to make their way down to Washington, D.C., so that we can honor them with a trip to, tell me the memorial sites again, Arlington?
Go to Arlington, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, changing of the guard. We try to make them all. Navy, we try to make them all. Marine Corps Memorial.
I'm just looking. Two, let's see, Arlington National Cemetery, you said Iwo Jima Memorial. Mm-hmm. All at no expense to the veteran.
No expense, not a penny.
Isn't that amazing? I'm just reading through a little bit of what you've got on your Facebook page here. Please help us with your mission to raise money and honor these veterans, to give them the respect that they deserve. Mm-hmm. Let's see if we can do it. And see if we can get some Vermonters on this flight, this next flight that's leaving in March again from the Manchester Airport.
Manchester.
Wow. This is something that is so impressive. It's so grassroots, and it's something that, man, I mean, I'm just in awe that you guys can pull something off like this. Is logistically alone. Is got to be
an amazing man right there. An amazing man right there.
Hey, I found my passion. I love every second of every day. Can you imagine how it is to be me? Every second of every day I wake up and I love it, love it, love it, love it.
That's cool.
And it's interesting that he says that because, I joined the American Legion in the auxiliary in 2010 once my dad passed away. And before that, it was just a place for us to go out dancing.
Sure.
And, this was the way I healed.
Yeah.
And now, like Joe, I say to everybody all the time, I can't imagine, besides the birth of my children, this is the most amazing thing, the most amazing feeling. And I wish that, you could bottle it and give it to those people who are just so down. When Joe was talking about, our younger veterans, maybe that's the answer, Joe.
Could be.
Having them be a guardian on an honor flight. I'm doing that this year.
Sure.
Because, I hear him talk about it. I watch the videos, all of that, and I hear Ken and his son talk about their flight, and it's amazing. And I want that. I want to be able to do that. Will I ever serve in a war? Absolutely not. I'm, far too chicken for that. But I applaud those that have. But I love veterans. And I want to be able to take a veteran. I don't have my father. He'll never be able to go on it. But I want to take another veteran on a flight. So that's,
Wow.
Yeah, that's why.
So, Karina, you're right here in Vermont.
I am. I live in Stannard.
So, again, you're if you missed the beginning of the show, Karina is the Centennial President at the American Legion Auxiliary Department of Vermont. and Joe Byron, right next to her, is the founder and executive director of Honor Flight New England. How can folks get in touch with you directly? What's the best way? Is it a cell phone, an email? Is it on Facebook?
Well, we could either way. I am definitely on Facebook under Karina E. Colson.
And that's CORRINNA.
Yep.
And then the middle initial E.
Yep.
And then Colson, COLSON.
Yep.
SON.
And send me a friend request. I'm almost up to 2,000 friends now because of all the connections I have with the Legion. Other than that, my email address is ccolson dot ALAVT for American Legion Auxiliary of Vermont.
ALAVT.
Yep. At gmail.com.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I'll even give my phone number, 802
Yep.
274 8333.
8333 is your cell.
That's correct. So if you want to sponsor or you want to send money to sponsor a Vermont veteran,
We got to do it.
contact me anyway, because
Please.
you're right, please. We are, 36,000 is a lofty goal, but I'm the centennial president, and you know what? I want to send a plane full of Vermont veterans on the honor flight.
So cool to hear that, isn't it?
It is
Joe?
so cool to hear that.
I love to hear people talk like that.
I don't know.
You talk about, when I started this podcast, I said I want folks that have a great story to tell. I want movers and shakers. I want people that get stuff done. That's it right there.
That's it right there, is for sure.
And you, my man. So how do people hit you up directly? What's the best way?
They can either send a donation from our website. It's honorflightnewengland.org.
honorflightnewengland.org.
All spelled out.
Yes.
Or if they want to send us a check, they can send it to P.O. Box 16287
Okay.
in Hooksett, New Hampshire,
Yeah.
03106. But I just have another story, if you don't mind.
Please.
And it's a small world.
Yeah,
it's
man.
a very, very small world.
You bet it is.
And this is a letter from a veteran. I will never forget this trip. The experience was something that I will treasure forever, but I had an extra special treat. I met a shipmate of my brother who was on the USS Bunker Hill. He did not remember my brother, but with a crew that large, it is understandable. I have never met anyone from the USS Bunker Hill. And according to Wikipedia, the USS Bunker Hill was struck by 2 kamikazes in quick succession, setting the vessel on fire. Casualties exceeded 600, including 346 confirmed dead and 43 missing, the second heaviest personnel loss suffered by any carrier. And the letter went on to say that my brother is now resting at the bottom of the sea of the South Pacific with the rest of his shipmates who paid for our freedom with their lives. But he met someone from the Bunker Hill. So it's a small world.
Yeah, it is.
And that's why it's so important to get him down there.
Yeah, it is. And met him on one of the honor flights.
On the flight.
Wow, man.
The other interesting thing I can say about this and it being a small world and what's really interesting about our veterans is the auxiliary also does gift shops for the veterans at the VA and at the Vermont Veterans Home. We're having those starting this weekend with the Bennington gift shop. But I've gone and visited at the VA several times, done these gift shops, and you go into a room and there can be 4 veterans in there, 4 beds, and you'll have someone.
Yes.
You'll have a younger veteran. You'll have a World War II veteran. You'll have, all age groups. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and what's interesting is like we come in with a cart. We ask them what they want for Christmas. They get to choose off the cart. And one time we were in there and there was 4 veterans in the room, and one of them said to the other veteran, who was an older veteran, and the younger veteran, had plenty of hair and a beard and everything else. He said, I think you might need a hat. I think you might need a hat because you don't have a lot of hair on your head. and then there was a banter that went back and forth.
I love
and
it.
So the thing about the honor flight, and as he said, a lot of them don't get to tell their stories. My father never spoke about his service at all. And, Ken, when he went, I never heard him talk about it before that, and he never really opened up at all. But after he went on the honor flight, we went down for a Quilt of Valor ceremony down at Bristol. And it was for, they also had a POW dinner and stuff. And he would, afterwards, like if you got him with the other, his comrades, it was like he was reaching out, grabbing their hand.
Sure.
And I imagine that's what happens on the honor flights.
Yeah, it does.
And, so that's why I think it's absolutely special. And I'm so glad that I got to do this as my president's project.
Good luck with it.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
If there's anything that I can do in any way to help, please come back on the podcast, both of you or either one of you. If there's anything I can do to try to help promote the great things that you're doing, I'm all about it. Count me in. Hit me up, and we'll get you on. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Here's
having
a
us.
great experience having you in here. Thanks to cruise planners right here in Central Vermont for supporting our podcast here, aired out. Of course, CW Print and Design in Barrie, FGB Theaters, the Capitol Showplace in Montpelier, Paramount Theater in Barrie. We're going to be down there broadcasting live real soon. We got Star Wars coming up. Can't wait for it. Donnybrook Fight Promotions in Williamstown. We've got Peak Entertainment, peakdj.com, and of course Gothiers Quality Grounds and Maintenance of Orange, Wright Electric, Chris Wright. We love him so much. Project Independence right here in the heart of Granite City, Fontaine Forestry and Millworks, Fly in the Wall Productions, and of course Tony Campos here at Central Vermont Television, cvtv723.org. Thanks to Chris Wright and my producer Billy tonight. Drive carefully, and we'll catch you again real soon. Be good to one another.